Well, welcome to the very first My Life in Football, and I'm overjoyed, to say the least, to be joined by, well, an absolute living legend in Jim Cooper. So I suppose first things first, welcome, Jim, and thanks for giving up your time.
No, you're welcome, David. Nice to see you again.
And you, mate, and you. I suppose for people that don't know what the show's going to be about, eventually we're going to try and get as many people as we can, chairmen, managers, supporters, volunteers on, just to give their story of how they've been in football and where they started from and to where they are now. Just to give you some kind of an insight into what they do for their football clubs. And there's probably no better place to start than, as I said, than a living legend like Jim. So I suppose, Jim, one of the first things then for me would be like, I suppose, where did it all start for you? I mean, being a police officer and stuff. I mean, where did football all start in your career?
Well, I think going way back before I joined the old Bill, my brother was a pro footballer at Coventry City. He went up there with Mark Haitley, Tom English, Nicky Phillips, Steve Jacobs, all local boys from around the Newham, Barking and Dagenham area. And obviously I was a young lad, and basically getting against basically my brother was a pro footballer at Coventry City. Signed with some very well-known players, in Mark Haitley, Tommy English, Steve Jacobs, Nicky Phillips, who all then eventually done like the non-league rounds and whatever. And I was obviously inspired, I suppose, by Kevin playing for Coventry City. We used to go up there and watch him, and then played. Obviously, went down to Tottenham and Watford myself when I was a kid. Got offered YTS forms. Now that's going back a few years. YTS forms at Tottenham, and then because my dad said my brother had a bad experience at Coventry with a bad injury, he said, "Why don't you give it a few years? If you're good enough when you're older, then they'll come back in for you." And then, like most young kids, you find beer and women. I don't know what order that's going to come in. To be fair, it was a long time ago. And to be fair, the pro side of it, I was probably not good enough to be a pro, but I was lucky enough to. End up initially playing for Leytonstone and Ilford under John Steele. We won the league with some excellent players in and around that side. Got bought by Dagenham, and that was my local club. I think it was for £3,000 at the time, and that was long time ago. So quite a bit of money, I suppose. And then, to be fair, didn't really have a great time at Dagenham, injuries, etc. And ended up basically joining the police in 1992, and then played for them for quite some time. Got my first little look into management with Reedy at Romford, only for about 4 or 5 months. But I loved it down that club. It was a great club. The people, the supporters, the committee, they were all like really positive and so behind you. But then the opportunity came up to manage the Met, and as it was, 15 years ago, I took the Met job on, and I suppose the rest is history. I suppose.
I suppose with the Romford part of it, though, I mean, I don't suppose many people, unless they sort of were Romford fans or followed your sort of career sort of closely, would have realised that you were actually at Romford. I mean, was it the same sort of situation as it is now, where they don't pay the players, and did you have some good results in that down there in the days? I mean, were they in the Isthmian League at the time?
Yeah, no, they was in the Isthmian League, and but they weren't paying. But they had like Steve King, young Steve King playing for them at the time. Both Mickey and Paul Rogan, good non-league players. And it was a good mixture of young lads over there. But, it was difficult because, like you say, that even back then they weren't paying then. But it was great times with Reedy and as I say, like the committee and everything. And in the same situation, they're still fighting for their own ground. And I wish them well with that because, if anyone deserves their own ground, that they certainly do.
Any good days, footballing good days down there at Romford? Any games that you can remember down there that sort of spring to mind?
To be fair, I was only there for about four and a half months before I took the Met job, if I'm being honest. But every game was a challenge down there. I mean, me and Mark Reed, I don't know if you know, we go back. Well, we were under eights playing football together from kids, So when he was given that opportunity, he was my assistant with the Met reserves prior to that as well. So he just basically done returned the favour. And every game was brilliant with Reedy and the players down there. It was a joy, actually. It was really good.
Mm. So moving on then, I mean, how did the Met Police job come about?
Well, they were struggling. They were, I think, second from bottom, and they were likely to get relegated. They were in the Division 1 level at the time, Ryman as it was then, Division 1. Look, probably going to get relegated, as I say. I took over with Gavin McPherson. Straight away, he came in as my number two, and we turned it round that season. And then for 5 out of the next 6 or 7 seasons, I think it was 7, I think it was, we finished in the playoffs, and sadly got beat in all of those playoff finals and whatever. But we got beat to some good sides. Cray were a good side, Maidstone. So we were getting beat by some good sides, and then we won the league. We beat Bognor on goal difference on the last day of the season by 1 goal, and got promoted to the Premier Division, and where we stayed at that level until I left at the beginning of this year.
Mm. Any sort of games there then that sort of stick out to you in the first couple of years? I mean, was there some great games there that as I say, that spring to mind straight away?
Yeah, I think the battles with Cray Wanderers were always good games. Jengo, their boss, was a real lively, fiery character who I remember from playing days as well. And every game against them was really good. We had a fantastic cup run, FA Cup run, where we played Crawley Town, who was second in Division 1 at the time, and they beat us 2-1, despite us hitting the post in the last kick of the game. So those sort of games obviously spring out straight away. But I'm not naive enough to think sometimes we actually got spanked a couple of times as well, which was a bit of a eye opener in my early career of management. I remember going to Staines up and they put 6 or 7 past us in the first or second year I was there, and I thought, you know what, I've got a lot to learn here, really, management. Sometimes my game management needs to improve, and probably do a little bit more research, which I've done post that time, really.
So I mean, with the Met Police, I mean, I know when I used to, especially when my brother-in-law and brother sort of joined Met Police sort of 10, 12 years ago, it was one of those things where you used to look at it and used to laugh and joke and say, oh, look, now you're in there, you can actually get into the team. But I mean, was it a bit like that in the early days? Was it just police officers in the early days, and then is it still now, or has that changed?
So when I joined in '92 and played, you had to be a cop or a member of police staff. It got more and more difficult to get time off of work, and I've said this before, I fully understand that, the constraints around the police budget and all public sector workers is, really quite tight now, and quite rightly, I think members of public want to see their cops walking the streets or whatever, rather than playing football of a Saturday afternoon. So I get where the club went, and initially I didn't. So what they've done is they started to bring in outside players, and as a bit of a protest, I left the club for a little while and just packed up for about a year and a bit or whatever, and then came to my senses and realised, you know what, that is the way forward. It's only going to get worse. So I then went back to the Met, and especially from the managerial point of view, it was a godsend. It had to happen. Because the standard we were playing at, we would have been trashed every single game if we didn't have those. But moving on as well from that, we then, about 6-7 years ago, we had a discussion with Les Cleverley and Stuart Searle about bringing an academy or a youth team over to the club, and it wasn't that well received from the committee members, in general as a whole. But we managed to, persuade them to actually give it a go. And to be fair, the club hasn't looked back since, and there's a massive untapped resources in youth football, because if you get maybe 2 or 3 come through to the youth team every year, you're paying them a lot less money than you would do than if you had to go out and bring players in, and some of the players, the youth players that the Met have now got as well, and have done in recent seasons, has been exceptional.
I mean, who's the biggest rivals then? What were the biggest rivals for Met Police? For the club itself.
Yeah, well, so I mean, local to Invercourt, you had Molesey, which is literally a stone's throw away. We were playing in different divisions, so I mean, I suppose Leatherhead and Kingstonians and Corinthian Casuals, maybe they were the local derbies, for want of a better word, I think. It's a bit strange because the Met Police aren't a region, they're not a town or a city. They're a works team in essence, really, albeit there's no cops playing. But certainly, like your Leatherhead, Kingstonians used to treat the games against us as a local derby because we were in the same environs and where they were, really.
So I mean, was it tough just to keep the team going? Through the years. I mean, if you're just using police officers, then sort of having to go to the outside in the sort of the later the later years. But was it very difficult? Did you have sort of like a settled side sort of every week, or was it difficult with shifts and stuff like that for you actually to put out say, should we say, a decent side every week?
Yeah, it was quite frustrating when it was purely cops or the majority of cops. Because you're right. I mean, like the Saturday morning, you'd get a phone call and say, I've been working all night. I've got a prisoner that I've got to deal with. I'm probably not going to be there. Bear in mind, they've been working all night, and then they're probably not going to get off until 11, 12 o'clock that day as well. They're not going to be ready to play a game of football either. But there was some. I mean, there's some really, really good cops that played football for the Met. John Daly being one, ex-St Albans Hendon legend, for want of a better word. Ian Batten, Dave Newman, and there's some really, really good players that have played for the Met.
I mean, is it a case of when you was actually sort of in the job? I mean, do you ever sort of like, I know you said you sort of left for a little bit. Was there times though when maybe other clubs came in for you and you thought, or other jobs came up and you thought, oh look, I'll fancy a go at that? But did your career in I'm assuming you're a police officer yourself, with that sort of side of it, did that sort of, you have to look at that side of it of being a police officer as well, thinking, well, I don't know if I'll be able to give it the right time that I need to.
Yeah, so I suppose that there's two aspects to that answer. Yes, there were clubs that made some inquiries about me going over to there, but I was so loyal. I'm a cop, and you know what? They gave me my first opportunity. The committee backed me all the way, and I just thought, you know what? I'm happy doing what I'm doing here. There's no need for me to go elsewhere. The second point of that was that I'd sacrificed my police career really to remain in management because I got jobs that were basically Monday to Friday, 8 till 4, 10 to 6s, and that as a career development as a cop ain't exactly a wonderful thing to do. So I picked jobs within the police service that allowed me to do the football.
So I mean, I suppose when it came to the the end part of it, I mean, was that a very difficult decision for you, and to leave the Met Police, and I mean, if you can or if you want to let people know why it was that you actually walked away in the end.
Yeah, I mean, so I think so at the end of last season, I was thinking, do you know what? I've been doing this travelling now for almost 27 years, and it was getting to me a little bit. From Upminster to Esher 3 times a week was quite some travelling. A lot of travelling and a lot of time. And I was thinking, do you know what? Do I really want to continue to do this and do the travelling? So that was the first time ever I actually thought, do you know what? I think I might look somewhere else. And then the FA restructuring happened, and unbelievably they put the Metropolitan Police in the Southern League when you've got teams like Bognor who are on the south coast near to Weymouth or wherever. But they put the Met Police there, and that made my mind up. There's no way I could travel to Wales or to Plymouth and Bournemouth areas to manage a game of football because one, I wouldn't be able to give them the time that any club deserves, and secondly, it was too much of an onus on me to carry on.
So I suppose one of the successes I suppose that you had was the cup run. I mean, talk to us a little bit about that and how that all came about from start to finish.
What, the FA Cup run?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was something. Do you know what? We'd really underachieved. I mean, if there's one thing that I regret down the Met, that's we've never really had that many good cup runs. That one was just phenomenal, though. We were really lucky in the draws that we had in the 4 qualifying rounds. I remember all of them were a league at least below our level. We had a really, really good side that year as well. Toughest game was going to South Park in, I think it was the third or fourth qualifier, and winning away there. But the interesting thing around that is that we'd signed John T. Smith on loan from Crawley Town, and in that cup run, he'd scored I think 14 or 15 goals, literally in those 4 qualifying rounds. It was phenomenal. It was magnificent what he'd done. And when we drew Crawley out of the hat, straight away they said obviously he can't play against his parent club, so we were down the centre forward that day. But it didn't, detract away from what a great day it was. And I know you're going to speak to some, really, really good, experienced managers, and they'll all say their FA Cup runs they've had is something to behold. It's brilliant. I mean, you don't forget the day. We had Steve Coppell, a legend when I was a kid growing up. He's the general manager of Crawley Town, and he couldn't have been more accommodating. He was brilliant. The whole day was excellent, and we didn't, we gave a really good account of ourselves.
So who did you start off with then in the first round? Talk us through.
Do you know what? I couldn't tell you. I mean, in fact, I could tell you actually. I think it was a team played out near Gatwick, and the interesting thing around that is that I was missing 7 players because Steve Sutherland got married on that day, and he invited quite a few of the players. And disappointingly for me, I mean, you know what I'm like as a character. Trust me, I wasn't happy.
Was
You
you
know,
not happy
and there
because
was fines going all over the place. You know what I mean? But we got through it with one son. I think 8-1 away.
was you not happy though because they didn't turn up to the game or you didn't get an invite?
Yeah, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Actually, yeah. That's been brought up a few times actually. I mean, but what? I mean, I don't know if you know Steve Sutherland. What a player as well he was for the Met Police, and he was an outside player, but he was down that club for donkey's years as well. But yeah, so it started off like that, and like I say, the draws were fairly kind for us, and it's one of, I think you need a bit of luck in the cup draws.
So you went from them. I mean, you say you played South Park as well. Do you know who else it was you had in there? Any?
Oh, I can't remember honestly, but they were all teams that were lower than our level. Which we was thinking of the draw. Do you know what? We can get through this one. We can get through this one.
Was Crawley round 1 then?
Crawley was round 1. Yeah.
So talk us through that day then when you taking on Crawley. I mean, what was that?
Well, I mean, it's massive for the club. You know, we thought it would be the featured game. They were second in Division 1. We were the lowest ranked team left in the FA Cup. And normally you think, oh, they're playing the Rozzers, blah, 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 this, that and the other. We had TV cameras down all week. We had London tonight. We had BBC down. We had like the Times. Everyone was there, coming over, watch us training. It was a week of, us preparing as a professional football club for that week only, if you know what I mean. It was a great experience. We had videos of Crawley Town that had been sent through to us by other professional clubs who had played them recently, and they sent them through to us to have a look at them. We'd been to see them previously. It was just done as professionally as you would imagine anyone else would have done the game themselves. Big crowd, say TV highlights. It was a fantastic day.
But it must have been fantastic for the club, in money wise as well, because I mean it would have been, say for in a small club, no disrespect, I Met Police. That probably meant went a very long way, I would have thought.
Yeah, almost definitely so. And they've had another great cup run this year where they've earned a lot of money as well. And you're right, the clubs in non-league, they benefit greatly from having a good cup run, TV money, etc., etc. So the only downside to that cup run was exactly the same as when we had really good league finishes, was that the next year, because we paid poorly in comparison to others, all our best players were plucked from us, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So we then had to rebuild the next season. So it always tended to be down the Met. I'd have maybe 1-2 good seasons, building a really good side, and then others will come in and from higher leagues or whatever, or just more money, and take the players. And I get that. That's football, isn't it? But there was a downside to that, all that exposure, all the good players, and then they left the following season.
Is that as you just said? Is that as a manager one of the most frustrating things? If you've got a side and you're a smallish side and you get a good side together, that other people come and sort of start cherry picking your players?
Yeah, it's frustrating, but the budget we always had, I knew that was going to happen anyway. So it's not worth me losing sleep over it because it was always going to happen.
And that cup run, of course, also, if I'm right in thinking, was that the same year as all the riots in London as well?
2012. It was around about that time, actually. Yeah, it was around about. Yeah, and that was yeah. I was working on those sadly as well, so yeah, that was a busy period.
So how did you juggle that? I mean, with them as well, because I know my brother-in-law himself was involved in that, and it was quite funny in one way, funny and not funny in another way. I remember seeing one of the police officers there get someone throw a paving slab into the air into a group of policemen. It hit a policeman on the head, and you sitting there and talking to the missus and said, "I hope that ain't your brother." Only to find out the following morning it was her brother that actually got clumped on with the actual paving slab. But I mean, how did you manage to get all the boys together, around that sort of side of it? I mean, that must have been difficult as well, because they must have been working all hours God send, maybe double shifts or stuff.
I mean, that was during the closed season. So right. When it actually happened, that was during the summer, when it was during the closed season. But all the investigations after that, they were building squads around it, and I was on one of the squads to try and find all the people that was concerned and whatever. And you're right, it was double shifts. There was loads of mutual aid. So we had cops coming in from all around the country to police London because of the, excuse the expression, the tinderbox feeling that it could go off at any time again. But yeah, it was difficult that time. But again, like I say, we had quite a few outside players as well at that point. So what was right, I suppose, what was born right was that the need to have outside players. Otherwise, we would not have been able to have put a side out.
I suppose. I mean, in the time in football, I mean, who's been your favourite player that in sort of non-league that you've seen? I mean, who's been your favourite non-league player and also that you've managed as well?
Yeah, so I mean, funny enough, I mentioned this the other night. My favourite non-league player. I'm a defender, and I love defenders. So for me, Paul Watts. Paul Watts he's about 54 now. So he was playing for Dagenham, Leytonstone, and Ilford. And I think it was I'm sure it was Arsenal or Tottenham, one of the two big sides at the time. They wanted to offer him pro terms, from non-league football to pro terms at the top of the game. And, he worked in the print and basically they couldn't afford to do it because the money weren't in it then. Paul Watts was an exceptional player, England C international, great player to play with and to watch play as a defender. Best player I think I've ever managed, and I'm going to go with John Daly because John Daly was central midfield player who would chip in with 20 plus goals every single season. And if you get a striker that puts 20 goals away every season, you're blessed. But a central midfield player, yeah, he was some player, he was.
I mean, you've gone from there. I mean, are you surprised? I suppose matches wise. I mean, has there been matches there? There's got to be probably some highs and some lows in games. I mean, what would you say is the biggest high for you in playing for, managing at Met Police?
Well, I mean, the highest one when we were beating teams like, to be fair, like Kingstonians, like Dartford, Maidstone, and we used to beat them, and it wasn't a case of them being disrespectful. I just think they just assumed they were going to come to the Met Police and turn us over because they always had done.
Yeah.
I mean, Alan Dowson, he's a good friend of mine, and he said to me, you know what, before you took over, we should look at the fixtures and go, there's 6 points playing the Met Police. Well, when you took over, you changed that, and six times out of 10 or whatever, you'd turn us over. So there wasn't really one game in particular. Any game that we won was a great day for me, and then you move on to the next one.
Worst experience?
Or
worst game, should we say?
Yeah, I think we got turned over by Case, funny enough. I think 7-1, and that was only about a few years back. No, and there's another one actually, and it's quite funny because Tom Richards from Aveley. I tweeted saying the other week I was watching Aveley against Grays, and brilliant game. I mean, an absolutely worldy of a game, brilliant. But at half time, Grays could have been 5-1 up at half time, and as it was, they went in 2-1. And I just tweeted saying, all I can hear is that the coaches berating the referee, and yet they could have conceded 5 or whatever, blah blah blah. And it honestly, they bit, and things like. I didn't mean it as a reaction, but I was just like reacting to like their moment. The referee have a word with their defenders and coach the defenders, and they might be better, blah blah blah. And Richardson, he tweeted back saying, "Well, don't you remember when Brightlingsea turned you over 5-1 or so?" And I thought, yeah, fantastic comeback for one, isn't it? Brilliant, isn't it? That day weren't great either. FA Trophy. We didn't have. I'll tell you now, we didn't have a very good side at that day though.
Is there clubs though, as a manager that you look at and you think, oh, here we go. I don't really want to go there because you've got, you just got that feeling about them. Is there a club like that for you where you go to them and you just sort of, I don't know, it's always the one that's the banana skin?
Bromley were for us, yeah, Bromley. I mean, obviously they've gone on leaps and bounds now, haven't they? But during the early years, and they beat us in one of the in the playoffs as well. We used to go to Bromley, and they just turned us over all the time. We just couldn't, for whatever we did, we couldn't beat them for love nor money. There was other clubs as well that were really difficult to beat, and yet there was some clubs that we beat on a regular basis as well. So it swings around about.
So that was the next question. Is there clubs there that you used to like playing? So is there, I mean, in the Prem there, was there teams that you looked at and looked forward to playing every year for one reason or another?
Not in as much as that. I thought that there's an easy 3 points, but you always look forward to your games against like Leatherhead and Kingstonians because the crowds and that they were brilliant, and I used to get so much stick. I mean, it's funny. I mean, I've got to be honest. I used to find it funny, all like the normal cop sort of ones coming out and things like that. And I've got to be honest, some of them are very innovative and funny, and you don't tend to hear the same ones as well. When you think fair play to Leatherhead supporters and Kingstonian supporters, but I used to enjoy it. I used to love it. I used to revel in that. It was brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, with football, I mean, since sort of like you've come out of football. I mean, are you surprised? Like, I know we are on the on the show, me and Keith, that you're not back in it already.
Yeah, it's been difficult if I wanted to get back in it. I quite have to say to you that I've applied for Hornchurch, gave it to Stimo, fair enough. Hayward Swifts gave it to Julian Dix, fair enough. Wingate Finchley, I made an application to them, and Aaron gave it to Shorey and Glenn, obviously. And then at the start of the year, I also went right at the start, went for the Hampton Richmond job, because although I was sick and tired of travelling, it wasn't the case if we got into National South, I wouldn't have done it. Obviously, I would have done,
Yeah.
And they gave that to Gary McCann. So I've lost out to some very very good people, and that's the way it is. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I want to get back involved now, but there's not a lot about, David. If I'm honest, there's not that much about at the moment.
But are you frustrated in a way that sometimes, I know when I speak to, when I've spoken to Paul before now, Paul Wickenden and Glenn as well, Glenn Driver, and two other managers that are sort of hoping for a job, and they, I think their frustration is sometimes they feel that the jobs have already been taken before they're almost put out.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they are. Yeah, I think they are, mate. Kingstonians recently, changed their manager, and within a day, I think they'd already appointed Dean Brennan. So it was already done, wasn't it? But yeah, I mean, fun enough, I've been speaking to Glenn Driver as well on the phone about our frustrations as well. Good manager,
Yeah.
really, really good, lovely bloke, top manager as well. And I'm surprised actually that him and Paul haven't again got anywhere either.
So of course you've gone on from that, doing your bit of punditry and all that side. Are you enjoying that side of life for the time being?
Yeah, it's really good. It's well produced. Ben does a great job on it. Got to know Jody Brown a lot better than I did ever know before, and Frank Wilson. And then there's a fantastic Charlotte Richardson who also presents a show. She's brilliant as well. So there's a good bunch of people that are doing a good job for non-league football. And there was a little bit of stick last week from I won't say the club, but all you got to do is go back through Twitter, I think.
Which club you mean? Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
And find out what club it is. And we done one of the games, and they were moaning that they didn't have all. All we're trying to do is to promote non-league football, and if your club's sponsors are on the video that we're showing week in, week out, well then surely that can only be a good thing as well. I don't get it, but it's a great show. It's a good show, and I'm enjoying it.
So I mean, is there a level then that you would want to get back in at, or is it if someone came up to you and said, look, I'm in the Essex, I'm not necessarily saying Essex Senior League, but that sort of level, would you look at a job in there, or would you be looking at?
Yeah, well, do you know what, mate? It depends what they're. So I'd like either a club that needs a total rebuild, so a long-term project, similar to what the Met Police was, if I'm honest. Because I think that I'm quite happy to bide my time and see what happens. Just as long as it's a well-established club, or ideally a Conference South club would be ideal, wouldn't it? But there's going to be far and few between those opportunities. So yeah, I'd go to a club that is looking for a project.
So I mean, you must have been through doing your stuff with Back of the Net and that. I mean, you must have seen quite a few games. I mean, have you been impressed with the standard this year? And are there teams out there that have surprised you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going so tomorrow. I'm going to go and watch Bowers and Pitsea against Basden tomorrow. I mean, I would not ordinarily gone to see them, but I'm looking forward to going and see the game tomorrow. I haven't seen Bowers this season, but I've heard they're a really, really good side, attacking and defensively. So I'm looking to see how good they are. But Dorking have really impressed me this year. They've got a competitive budget, but they're a really, really good footballing side. As are Merston this year. A little bit disappointed with Kingstonians because this is the first year, obviously, I'm allowed to bet because I'm not involved in football. And at 20-1, Kingstonians for me look like a good price at the start of the year.
Yeah.
So there's done my money there. But there's some really really good side. I've got the Aveley are a very very impressive side. I was really impressed with the way they're attacking, scoring a lot of goals. But that's a tough league, with them, Coggeshall, Bowers, Morden, Haybridge. That's a strong top five there.
I've seen the likes of Morden and Bowers in the last few weeks, and both extremely impressive. And I must admit, I was very surprised to see Morden lose to Bowers. I'll be honest with you. I'm not saying that.
Was it 1-0? Was it 1-0? Was it
1? And it was just a really when you saw the two teams play against Aveley, if you'd have looked on the 2 days there, you would have said, we could have been playing. We got a penalty against Morden, but it was one of those things where we could have been playing all day long, really, on open play. Would never have scored because the defence.
Which is surprising because going forward, you look really, really strong, didn't you?
I mean, is there teams though in the that have disappointed you maybe in the prem wise? I mean, I know someone said to me about 2-3 months ago that one of the teams that might struggle all of a sudden was Mersham. And then since that person said that, they've just gone on this huge run and gone into gone up towards the playoff area.
Yeah, I mean, so Hayden's philosophy is play football at all costs, and you can only credit him for that. But they were on a bit of a tough run, and if you're just going to try and play your way out all the time, sometimes you just need to put that ball in behind the back line. But they were getting punished week in, week out. But you know what? He's got a really, really good set of players over there. So I had no issues with them. I thought that Potter's Bar might get dragged into the mire a little bit, but it seems as if they've steadied the ship as well down there as well. And I don't really think you can really look outside maybe the bottom four now of the Bostik Premier and think, is anyone else going to get dragged into that? I think Hornchurch will be all right. I think Stimo's made a couple of shrewd signings. And have you seen George Saunders as well?
No.
Oh, mate, he is quality. I mean, he is. I'll be surprised if Hornchurch keep him. He'd be a pro, I think, before too long. So I think they've got more than enough to stay out of it. But I just think, the bottom sides of Burgess Hill, who seem to be, getting beat regularly at the moment, conceding quite a few goals. Whitehawk, who have picked up a little bit, as have Harlow. But I think, I don't think you can look at that side, many of those, to see the sides that probably get relegated.
Yeah, I mean, big one tomorrow, of course, because it is Harlow against Whiteleaf, so it's going to be a real sort of old-fashioned 6 point.
Yeah, Whitehawk, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Whitehawk, yeah.
Yeah,
it's gonna be
I mean, look, Harlow. I mean, to be fair, they're having some really good results, and then obviously the result last weekend was a bit of a kick up the backside for them. But I mean, that is a big game tomorrow.
It's going to be that one. It's going to be difficult for them. But I mean, for yourself, I mean, how long do you think you might be out of the actual game itself?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, I really don't know. I mean, our club's going to be looking to make changes, coming in now. I mean, if you're down the bottom or if you've been underperforming, perhaps, you might want to look for a change before next season. I mean, the thing is, I'm hoping is that, if it's come the close season, there'll be a few, and you don't see any manager lose their job, that's for sure. But if there are any vacancies, then I'd like to think that, perhaps I might be in the shout for next season, if not before then.
So, I mean, the actual, one of the teams you mentioned earlier on, of course, was Romford. I mean, your old club there, they're struggling. One of the teams that were right at the top to start with, and they've dropped right away again. I mean, do you feel for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think they got beat as well the other night. Was it Dereham? I think it might have been beaten the other night or whatever. But there seems to be a little bit of a gap now that's opening up between Romford and the side above. And I'll be gutted if they go down. Literally, I'll be gutted, especially now as they've got a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel with Westlands being a potential location for them to get a ground, etc. And it'd be a shame for the club if they got to drop down to regroup to come back up again. Because Paul Martin, or Magic as he's known in non-league football, he's done a tremendous job since taking over from Reed. He can keep them in that level. And as I say, the end of last season, the run they had, I mean, who knows, they might do exactly the same this year.
I mean, with the actual situation with Met Police and of course moving over to the opposite league, I mean, if they were moved back next year and the job came up, would you be interested in going back to the Met Police?
I think my time there's done. If I'm being brutally honest, and if I'm honest, they've got Gavin's taken over from me, in Johnny Nurse, so it's the same management team bar me that's there, and I don't think I need to make any changes. Gav's doing a brilliant job over there, and so no, I think my time there's done. I had great times over there, and if I'm honest, I'd like a new challenge as well.
So tell us some of the stuff that tell us something about the ground in Invercourt and what it's like there, and a bit behind the scenes as well of how the club was run, because some people probably wouldn't know how the clubs who's behind the scenes as such at the club.
Yeah, okay. So I mean, if I start with the most contentious one is that the budget. It's it's not paid out of taxpayers' money. Um, each week, members of the police officers and police staff, they pay into a lottery which the football club run, and there's 30,000 people that pay into this every week. So there's obviously quite a lot of money coming in, but that pays for all of the support within the Metropolitan Police. And as a result of that, then they pay the expenses to players to go and play for the Met Police. They have to pay for the upkeep of the ground, which is a magnificent old style football club. The pitch is still second to none. Undersold sprinklers that come up to water the pitch, etc. Old style floodlights. Very, very few people, sadly, obviously come and watch. Now it's getting a little bit more because they're doing well. And again, because we said earlier, it's not affiliated to any local town or anything. And who's going to come along and start shouting Met Police, Met Police? They'll get carted off, won't they? So, but the ground itself is quite old style, but it's magnificent dressing rooms. The pitch is brilliant, and that is a good attraction for any players who want to come over and play football. Off the field, as I say, I think they've got about 30 odd youth sides now, so they're a chartered club. It's run so well with Mr. and Mrs. Ness, who run that. They run so many clubs up to an academy level, and then the committee are all ex-serving police officers. And sadly, because of they're getting older and people passing, etc., they haven't got a massive committee to do all the work, as that people have to do off the field to keep the club running. So it's difficult for them, but they get by and they do a good job of it.
And do you think that's difficult though? Being the manager of it or being part of Met Police Football Club to actually get people to come and watch, because it is the Met Police and it's just
of course, yeah, no, it's definitely so. Yeah, I mean, we did attract probably, I'd say, a hardcore of about, and we're not talking about the Clapton Ultras here, who are very vociferous and brilliant fans, and you want them in your camp week in, week out. We had about, I don't know, a group of about 15 to 20 people who had no affiliation to any of the players or the staff or committee, local people that would come every single week and probably travel away and watch the side as well. So I know it's not a vast amount of people, but even 1-2 paying customers that come week in, week out, you're thankful for them, aren't you? But yeah, of course, I mean, for them to come, people that come over and support the Metropolitan Police is, you've got to be playing the right brand of football to attract them firstly, and then make them welcome when they're over there.
Is there any sort of when you was there? I mean, was there still sort of how can we say, budding footballers coming out of the police force itself and coming into it?
Well, sadly, I mean, I say sadly, we had Neil Barrett, who joined the police quite late in his footballing career, but he's an FA Trophy winner with Ebbsfleet. I mean, what a player he was in his time. But he was coming towards the end of his career. Still done very, very well for us when he played for us. But he's now on the coaching staff of the reserve, so that's quite good that we've got that, that police officers, managing both the first team and the reserves as well. So that's quite good. But very, very few footballers that join the police now want to play football, because if they get injured, they won't be supported financially anymore. So it's a tough one. You break a leg and you're off work for 6 months and you don't get paid.
I mean, is there any side of it, I mean, there probably is, but I mean, what sort of sides of it is it that you actually miss for, with being at the Met Police?
No, the camaraderie. I mean, and being around football, because I'm not doing it, am I? I'm going to say as a spectator at the moment. And it's funny actually, because I know Keith obviously done that. He wanted the poll around the referees, and I get what he's saying. I really do, 100%. I get exactly what he's trying to achieve there. But it's strange. I've probably not been at the games and I haven't been at the games he's referring to, because I haven't been to see Keith's games. But the majority of referees I've seen this year actually have been actually quite good. They've actually been quite good. However, if I was on the touchline, as I said, as the Aveley guys were, as the Grays guys were, I'm sure I would have been gesticulating to them as much as what they were. But from a spectator's point of view, you look at it from a different point of view, which I didn't think I'd ever say about referees. I mean, I think I was one of their worst, people. Is Jim Cooper again today? Never nasty, malicious, but I would always be in their ear. But they've actually, the ones I've seen, they've done well this year.
So you didn't turn around to any of these refs and tell them you were going to nick them if they didn't give it a penalty.
Yeah, no. That means I'd have to actually do some work then, wouldn't I?
But I mean, in all fairness, in that sort of side of it, did that ever sort of, did you feel at any time referee Met Police differently to anybody else because of them being serving policemen in the early days?
No, I don't think so. I think some referees, certainly one referee turned up and he couldn't stand me. I mean, I've got to admit, he was the worst referee. He was, I think he was an Eastern European he just hated me. And it was so obvious that he would give decisions, bookings, sending offs, penalties against us because he just didn't like me. And that says more about him than anything else, really, if I'm honest. He should have been above that, but yeah, no, the referees were normally all right for the Met Police.
Did you get any then sort of from other clubs when you went to go to other clubs? I mean, was there ever any issues there where maybe, I don't know, any funny incidents where one of your team might have pulled over somebody that was playing in the opposite side?
No, but we had an incident. I mean, I'm not going to say the club or the actual person, obviously, but we was at a ground when afterwards an opposing player came in with a metal bar and swung at one of our players. Volatile situation. I mean, bear in mind I'm Old Bill and there's about 4 or 5 Old Bill, but it was packed full of their supporters as well. So we couldn't deal with it at the time, but it certainly had to be dealt with. We ended up going to Crown Court over it, funny enough, as well. And, despite there being, I think, 6 or 7 police witnesses about a yard away from it, he got found not guilty. So fair play. He didn't do it, and which is fair enough. But that is the only time in 15 years when there's been something like that. The managers and staff from the other side are brilliant because they're professionals, aren't they? The game's completely changed, and non-league managers and staff and players, they're almost as good as being professional, and they were brilliant with us.
I mean, one of the things I always used to see, we always used to talk about on the show with Keith as well, was the fact around with Met Police when you was in charge of Met Police, it would always be sort of one of those sort of seasons. You'd either start off really, really well and then drop away, or you'd start off really poorly and then sort of come up the leagues after that. I mean, did you find that yourself, that some seasons you'd be sort of almost alternate?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what I said earlier. So when we had a decent side and we kept them for the following season, we'd start really, really well. But then other clubs would come in and pick because they were on contract. Yeah. Then we'd lose the players, so then we'd have to literally rebuild halfway through the season. So obviously, then your form goes down and you lose more games. Vice versa, when we're just restyling our brand or getting a new team together, you ain't going to start very well at the start of the year, but by the time you've coached them, they get used to what you want from them, then you'll finish really quite strongly. So we were never really in a position where we had a side for 2 seasons in a row where, I mean, we finished 5th in the playoffs one season, and we got beaten in the playoffs against Hendon. And then the following season, we lost, I think, 7 of that side. So we finished about the 16th. So it was frustrating.
Was it difficult to pull players in from the outside though when the Met Police manager calls, or was it because you got such a good reputation in non-league football that people came to play for you and not necessarily for Met Police?
Yeah, I think some of that's true. I think I'm so honest with players. Instead of I think we all know managers that will just tell what the player wants to hear, I think, rather than be honest with them. If I'm going to drop someone, I'm telling them the reason why I'm dropping them, and that gives them the incentive to improve, to get back in the side. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. And when I talk to players in pre-season, I'll say, listen, my aims are, so when Billericay are in the league, I'm ringing up players and saying, right, we ain't winning the league. I'm not going to lie to you. There's no way we are winning this league. However, I reckon I'm going for the top 5 or top 6. to get in the playoffs. And they go, do you know what? In my honesty, I wouldn't mind a little challenge around the playoffs, etc., etc. So it was quite easy to attract players because the pitch was brilliant, the facilities were good, and the fact that the police were never going to knock them for their money, because how can the police knock people for money? It's all, you know what I mean? It's unheard of, isn't it?
So, I mean, again, I mean, you see a lot of teams get players from leagues above and on loan, etc., etc. I mean, was that difficult for you as well to go to sort of like maybe some league teams or national conference sides and get some loanees from there? Because hang on a minute, we were going to be loaning them down to Little Met Police, or because of the name Met Police, was that difficult as well?
No, I think because of the amount of time I've been in the game, it was quite easy for me to get loanees in. I had Nathan Baxter on loan from Chelsea. He'd won the FA Youth Cup for 2 years running. He was an England under 18 goalkeeper, and he came from Chelsea to play for the Met Police for the first 6 months of the season. Brilliant, lovely kid, excellent. So I had contacts at Chelsea, Palace, Charlton, the Conference National when Johnny Steele was either at Dagenham or Barnet and things like that. So I had quite a good pull of players, and they would send them over to us in the knowledge that I wouldn't be trying to tap them up to stay next year, or I'd be looking after them, you know.
Yeah. So was that a thing though with reputation? I mean, if you've got like a really good reputation in non-league football like yourself and Craig Edwards, and a few of the others. I mean, because of you've got that sort of nous around it as well, that you found it a little bit easier to get players because of that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, because they know what you're all about, don't they? And players are sensitive souls, for want of a better word, aren't they? They want that arm around the shoulder when they need it. But I think when they're going to sign for a new club, I think they want to know exactly what they're going into. And if they know the manager, as everyone knows, Craig, they know what he's all about. You know, he's going to be honest with them, and as well, similar to myself. So I think that's a good draw for players.
Any fun times against Mr. Edwards?
Always fun times against Craig. Always. I mean, he's helped me out as much as I've helped him out. I've got to be honest, and whether or not he denies it or not, I think I was quite instrumental in him getting the Dulwich job when he got it. I was punting his name out to Martin Eade all the time, blah blah blah. But since then, he's players wise, he's lent me players, and we've spoken about players all the time. I mean, even now he's still saying, any players, blah blah blah, and top lad, Craig. So much time for him, but it was brilliant to manage against him, because it was always like, you can try and wind each other up, he try and wind me up, and vice versa.
So I suppose one last one of the other questions for us, I suppose, is 3G or not 3G?
Yeah, I'm all for it. For it. I think that Aveley Football Club is brilliant, and I think that's probably why I want him to go up as well this year in the playoffs, assuming they don't win the league, because what Craig and everyone's done over that football club, it's a brilliant football club. The actual place itself, the pitch, we played in the cup final last year against Billericay, was excellent. So for me, yeah, 100%.
Are you surprised by the amount of people that don't like 3G though?
Yeah, but I don't get it. I mean, some players will say it plays havoc on their knees and their ankles and that. Okay, fine if it does, but for me, it's as good now as it is as grass is. For me, so I am surprised at it. And from a commercial point of view, it would be something certainly I think that the Met Police would consider doing as well, despite how good their pitch is.
I mean, I know a lot of people, especially Keith hates it. He wants it all burned, but I mean. But I mean, for me, I don't see the issue with it at all. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's difference in some of the pitches. You see some of them there that have got, too much black rubber in them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And others that haven't. But I mean, for me, I don't see any issues with it at all. And especially when people say that, that a lot of people are at a disadvantage when they go and play on it. And you think, but people don't look at it in the right way for me. If you're one team in your league, say, for instance, I know you've got 20 teams in your league now, and you're the only one with 3G in it, you've got to play 19 games on grass.
Away, exactly right, exactly.
And
whereas you're only playing one, yeah. Exactly. I'm with 100%.
So I don't see where the disadvantage is, because not being funny, majority of these teams moan that they're playing on 3G, but they train on it. So I just don't get it.
I don't think there's a course really for a firm base for a good argument around there. It's as good as grass now. If you water it as well, you've got a true bounce on the ball. Yeah, for me, I'm thumbs up for 3G.
I suppose last question before you go, then, Jimmy. What's the future for Jimmy Cooper?
I really don't know, David. If I'm honest, I'm going to probably continue doing back of the net until such time as BT Sport or Sky want me. So I won't hold my breath on that one. Alternatively, whether if the right job comes up for me to manage, then I'll be applying for some, I'm sure.
Listen, mate, a pleasure of being my first guest on My Life in Football, and
You're welcome, mate. It's been a pleasure talking to you, mate.
And I know you'll be back in football, and literally pulling up everything to get to the top of the league, and you'll be there, and you'll be flying again. But so I really, really do appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us tonight.
You're welcome. Cheers, mate. All the best.
And you.
Bye, mate.